Hello and welcome to this quick lesson. Today we're going to use GarageBand to create our own podcast interview, and we're going to do it with an alien. So here's an example of what we're going to create, but rather than looking, why don't you have a minute and listen to my podcast?
Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Good morning, and thank you for joining me today. Would you like to please introduce yourselves to our listeners?
My name is Nigel, and I'm speaking to you today from the distant planet Neptune.
Wow, well it's lovely to speak to you. It's pretty good, isn't it? Now this should be a really fun project, so we're going to start off in Pages. And in Pages we're going to use a template that I've made, or you can use your own document, to plan an interview between yourself and the character you're interviewing. We're going to do an alien, but you could do any character you like. We're also going to use Safari at this stage to get some research to make sure our interview is as accurate as we can, while still making it good fun. Then we're going to jump straight into GarageBand, and we're going to use the voice sampler to find some really cool effects to make our voice sound like an alien or whatever character you've chosen. After that, we're then going to record the conversation between ourselves as the interviewer and our special guest alien. And then in step number 4, we're going to edit that conversation to make it really snappy, and we're going to add in some cool sound effects as well. And finally, in step number 5, we're going to export our project as a song that you can then share with your friends, your teacher, anyone you like. Okay, so all you're going to need is an iPad, and that iPad needs to have GarageBand and Pages installed. As long as you've got those two apps, you are good to go. And if you want to scan that QR code on the screen now as well, using your camera app, you can download a Pages template that I've made just to help you plan your interview script. But no worries if not, you can always use a blank document. Why don't we jump straight in and get started with step number 1. We're going to go straight into Pages, and you'll see that I've got the template open already. Now on here I can plan the conversation between myself and another character. I'm going to do an alien because that makes for a fun podcast, but you can do whatever character you like. Maybe you're learning about the Romans, you could do a Roman centurion. Maybe you're learning about Harry Potter, you could interview Hermione or Ron or Harry. Whatever you want to do, you can plan your own interview. You'll see already I've written some script for my alien character, but I want to check I've got some facts correct. In order to check the temperature on Neptune is accurate, and it should be accurate for a podcast, I'm going to jump into Safari and double check. But rather than closing Pages, I'm going to flick my finger up from the bottom, and that will bring up the dock. Then I'm going to tap and drag the Safari icon so it's floating on top of Pages on the right hand side. From here I can browse Safari, I can Google my search result, and when I found that temperature, very chilly, I can type that into my interview dialogue. Take your time here and plan the perfect interview dialogue. The better your script, the better your podcast will be. You can see from mine I've tried to have a bit of fun with it as well, and I'm not afraid to use Safari to get more information. For example, finding out how many Earth years it would take for 1 year on Neptune. The more facts, the better this will be. Why don't you take a pause now for a minute or two while you write your dialogue, and when you're ready we'll go on to step number 2 together. Now it's time to jump into GarageBand. So open up the GarageBand app, and on the home screen where you can choose the instrument, you want to keep going until you find the audio recorder with that microphone picture there. This will let you use the iPad's built-in microphone to record your voice as you're talking. We're going to then press onto the voice button, and that will bring up our studio recording environment. We don't actually want the studio mode today, instead we want to use the fun setting, so on that tab at the top, jump onto the fun option. And here, you'll see a little confirmation message, tap on continue, and then you get this wheel full of different characters and emoji. First of all, I'll stick on clean, which is my normal voice, and I'll press the record button on the top toolbar to record a test phrase like this.
Hello, I'm Nigel the alien from Neptune.
You'll see at the top that that blue progress bar shows how much audio I've recorded, and I can press play to listen to my sample.
Hello, I'm Nigel the alien from Neptune.
At the top you can press the blue button to turn the metronome off, and that will get rid of that clicking noise.
Hello, I'm Nigel the alien from Neptune.
I know my voice is okay, and for the interview half of my character is going to be me, but the other half is going to be an alien in my example. So I'm going to choose some of these different emojis to see what effect that has on my voice. Now this is really good fun. Have a listen to a couple of these different options.
Hello, I'm Nigel the alien from Neptune. Hello, I'm Nigel the alien from Neptune.
Hello, I'm Nigel the alien from Neptune.
They're all good, but I really like the monster one myself. You've also got some dials at the bottom to change some of those settings, for example the tone and the pitch. You can use these to adjust the output of your effect, and feel free to explore those in a moment. I'm going to go for the robot, and I'll make a few adjustments as well, and that's the sound effect I want to give to my alien.
Hello, I'm Nigel the alien from Neptune. Hello, I'm Nigel the alien from Neptune.
Now I know you're going to want to play with this, and you should, because it is great fun. So there's no rush here. Explore the different settings of your voice sample, and when you're happy with the voice you've chosen, at the top you're going to press the button I'm pointing to now. That will take you back to our main composing view, and you'll see in my top track I've got that sound effect. I don't want my sample voice anymore, so tap on there, press delete, and then you're ready for step number 3. Don't rush this, have some fun, explore those different sound effects and those dials at the bottom of the screen, and when you've chosen your alien voice, we can move on to step number 3. Okay, so step number 3 is where things are going to get really interesting and where we're going to create our podcast itself. So first of all, we want to make a brand new audio track for our normal narrator voice. Tap the plus button at the bottom, go back onto the voice recorder, and make sure you've chosen clean. Then press the tracks button to take you back to that screen with the alien voice and the human voice. At this point, I'm going to drag up from the bottom of my screen to get the dock again. And just like I brought in Safari earlier, I'm going to drag Pages and hover that over GarageBand. That means I can then read my script as I'm recording in GarageBand, and it does get in the way a little bit sometimes, so you might need to move it from side to side of your screen, but it's a lot easier than opening and closing the app every time. Of course, if you've got a second device there with you, maybe have the script on one and GarageBand on the other, it's totally up to you. But what this means now is I can record my dialogue of my interview just like this. So first up, tap onto the narrator track, the clean voice, press record at the top, and then you can record your opening speech, just like this. Good morning, and thank you for joining me today. Would you like to please introduce yourselves to our listeners? Now when you've recorded that, you want to press the tracks button again to go back to your main song page, and then you want to drag the playhead, that's the little vertical line going through your song, and you want to drag that to the end of the clip you've just recorded. Then tap onto the alien track, or whatever character you've decided to use, and again you can press record to record the alien dialogue, just like this. Why certainly. My name is Nigel, and I'm speaking to you today from the distant planet Neptune. The great thing is GarageBand will apply that effect immediately for you, so if I go back to the beginning of my song and press play, this is what you should get. Good morning, and thank you for joining me today. Would you like to please introduce yourselves to our listeners?
My name is Nigel, and I'm speaking to you today from the distant planet Neptune.
You can probably guess where this is going now. I'm going to drag the playhead to the end of my last recording, tap onto the narrator track, and then record again for my narrator voice. Wow, well it's lovely to speak to you, Nigel from Neptune. Tell me, what's it like there today? When I've done that, I'm going to go back to my song by pressing the tracks button. I'm going to go to the end of the narrator recording and jump back onto the alien track before recording it all over again. You might notice at this point that actually our song is only 8 bars long, and for a podcast it needs to be a lot longer than that. But don't worry, press the plus button next to the number 8, and on here you can change the length of your recording and your project. I'm going to switch to automatic, and that means as I keep recording the voices, the project will automatically get longer to fill. I'm going to go back and forth between these 2 tracks until all of my dialogue is recorded, and you might need to move pages across the screen by simply dragging your finger on the top and moving it from side to side. Let's jump ahead for a moment or two, and now you can see my built-up podcast in GarageBand. If we press play, you'll hear that dialogue between the 2 characters with all the effects going, just like this. Good morning, and thank you for joining me today. Would you like to please introduce yourselves to our listeners?
My name is Nigel, and I'm speaking to you today from the distant planet Neptune.
Wow, well it's lovely to speak to you, Nigel from Neptune. Tell me, what's it like there today?
Very, very cold. In fact, it's cold.
Alright, that's going to take a little bit of time, so pause the video here and record your dialogue between the 2 different tracks. Make sure you move the playhead to the end each time. In this step, we're going to do 2 things to make our podcast sound even better. Firstly, we're going to get rid of any awkward silences between the 2 characters by cropping out some of that empty space. So tap onto the first piece of recording you've made, and you'll notice that waveform in the middle. That's your voice. At the beginning and the end, there might be periods where that line is a straight line, which means it's silent. If that's the case, when you've tapped on the clip, you can drag in from the right or left to shorten the clip slightly. I would go through and shorten each of your clips if they need it. You haven't got to make them so short that the dialogue is literally bleeding into each other, but do try and get rid of any long silences. You can then tap and drag the audio clips to reline them up, so you have one after the other after the other. When you've done that, it's time to add some sound effects and maybe background music to our podcast as well. So tap on the Loops browser in the top corner. That's the one that looks a bit like a snail or perhaps a roller coaster loop. Now you can use the filter bar at the top to narrow this down, and I'm going to go for some sound effects. So to find the sound effects, I'm going to tap the genres button and then sound effects. Now I happen to know there's a really good audio clip from the Apollo 11 countdown, which I think would be great for a space podcast. So I'm going to scroll and find that, and if you tap on it, you can listen to that loop.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yes, that's perfect. So let's tap and drag that onto our screen, and we're going to put that on a new track, a third track at the bottom, and we're going to drag it right to the start of our podcast. Now, because that's right at the beginning, if I were to play it, you would hear me talking and the sound effect at the same time. Because this is my intro, I actually want to move all of the recordings of the voices slightly after that intro. So I'm going to pinch and zoom out of my song. I'm then going to tap and drag a box to select all of the audio recordings that I've made, and I'm going to drag them sideways so they begin after the introduction finishes. Now, if I listen to it, I should have that intro leading straight into my first sentence. Okay, now we've got lots of interesting sound effects, an introduction, and the actual dialogue between the two characters, it's time to do a little bit of mixing to make sure we can hear it all properly. On the left-hand side, where you've got your icons for each track, you can swipe that right slightly, and that will pull out all of the different options for those tracks. From here, you can adjust the volume individually. So my alien voice could do with being a little bit louder, whereas that eerie music could be a bit quieter. So I'll make some adjustments now. I'm going to go back into my Loops browser to find some background music just to play quietly underneath the talking. I'll have a bit of time to explore this, and you can explore it yourself in a minute as well, but I quite like this eerie sort of sound. It's kind of a little bit spacey. You might imagine hearing it in the rocket as you're taking off or something. I like that a lot. I'm going to drag that soundbite onto another new layer at the bottom of my screen, and because it's a loop, it will automatically fill the whole length of my recording. When I've had a bit of a play, it's time to stop and listen to what I've made so far.
4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Good morning, and thank you for joining me today. Would you like to please introduce yourselves to our listeners?
My name is Nigel, and I'm speaking to you today from the distant planet Neptune.
Wow, well it's lovely to speak to you, Nigel from Neptune. Tell me, what's it like there today?
Very, very cold. In fact, it's currently 201 degrees Celsius below freezing.
Once again, this is a great time to pause the video while you do some editing and add your sound effects in, and when you're ready, we'll go on to the last stage together. Our final step together today is to export our podcast as an audio file that you can play anywhere, even if you haven't got GarageBand on that device. So press the document browser in the top left corner, that's the blank page, and then you should see your GarageBand project on the Files screen. Tap and hold it and press Rename first of all, and give it a name that you'll remember for later. When you've done that, you're going to tap and hold again, and this time you're going to press Share. Now on this screen you can share it in different ways. We're going to choose Song. And even though it says Song, that will export our project as an audio file, which means you can play it on any device. And when you've done that, you can change a few settings, including the quality of your song. I'd recommend going for high quality, and you can put in the artist name and composer as well. That will be you. You can even put in artwork if you've made an artwork picture for this. If not, you can always make a square picture and then import that at this stage too. When you're done, press Share, and that will export your song. Give it a minute or two, and then you'll get the share sheet coming up. From here, you're going to tap Open In, and on the next screen that comes up, you're going to press Save to Files. Navigate to where you want it to be in the Files app, and then when you've pressed Save, let's close GarageBand completely, and let's open up Files to check it's in there. When you go to that folder, you should find an audio recording of your podcast with the alien, and you can listen to it right in Files by pressing play. From here, you can then share it with other people, you can export it, or do whatever you like. And that's it. Your podcast interview is complete. Congratulations!
1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Good morning, and thank you for joining me today.
Goodness me, what an adventure. We've gone right from researching an alien planet to writing up a script in Pages, and then we've used GarageBand and the effects built into GarageBand to create a podcast where you're interviewing an alien or a character of your choice. I hope you've had good fun making this, and I hope your results sound really, really great fun. I would love to hear what you've made, and if you can, feel free to share it on Twitter or Instagram with the Quick Lessons hashtag, or let me know in the comments down below how you got on. And lastly, if you enjoyed this quick lesson and you want to do some more creative iPad activities, there are some more quick lessons for you on the screen now, and there are even more on my YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe as well, then when I add new ones, you'll get them straight away on your homepage.